Yo, and welcome back to the Fix Sports Podcast, which is the realest, blackest, and funniest sports podcast you have ever heard in your entire life. I'm coming straight from the South, going down. Audio shop talk right in your ear hole, brought to you by yours truly right here on the Freedom Train Network at www.freedomtrainradio.com. I am Joseph Ward, and I'm joined by my homeboys. They back this week. It ain't no holidays. Well, it kind of holiday, but ain't no holiday. Hey, Merry New Year! Merry New Year's!
That's
2021 up in this piece, man. We made it. We happy. And guess what? For a lot of y'all people, all y'all problems y'all had 2020, they still with y'all because y'all ain't fixing. Hey, get the fixing, people. Remember, take work to get work. You heard me? Hey, we'd like to thank everybody for joining us. Everybody who's been viewing these videos, all the comments, all the likes, good comments, bad comments, whatever, we taking them all as of right now. We appreciate y'all for tuning in and supporting us. Remember, y'all can follow me on Instagram. Follow us on Instagram, the whole network at Freedom Train Network. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. It's Freedom Train Network YouTube channel. Join my Fix Sports Podcast Facebook group. Join the group. We'll be in there discussing stuff, sharing articles, a lot of stuff that we may not talk about on the podcast, get talked about in the Facebook group. Remember, like this video, comment, subscribe. We need them likes. We need them likes. We need them shares. We need them comments. We need them subs. We need these views. That way more people can see this. And if you like it, you want to see it more, it helps to be seen more. Real quick, remember that the Fix Sports Podcast is brought to you by On the Shoulders of Giants, and On the Shoulders of Giants brings you African history at your fingertips and on the go through their On the Shoulders of Giants book series, the On the Shoulders of Giants blog. Make sure you check out Module 1 of the On the Shoulders of Giants online course series. Module 1 is Freedom Fighters of the African Diaspora, profiling 18 freedom fighters you may or may not have heard of. So it's a lot of information, over 2 hours worth of information. Make sure you go check that out. And you can learn more about the On the Shoulders of Giants nonprofit organization, as well as the virtual classes, as of right now, virtual classes that you can take part in, all type of educational sessions that they got. www.ontheshoulders1.com, where you can get your learn on. Really going down. So, Dot Love, Javard Grant, Sam Dixie, my homies, what it looked like really going down.
What's good,
man? Hey, man, I like how y'all got y'all Florida State gear on for this one.
Of course. Grant,
where your Florida State gear at, Javard? Oh, shoot. Okay, he got it. He got the grad student shirt. Hey, so the gear is fitting because this week we got Florida State versus Florida. We're from Tallahassee, so this is big for us, and this is a historic matchup between two of the best teams that each school have had. We also have 2018 Clemson versus 1997 Michigan. But you know how we do it. Before we get into the actual breakdown of the teams, so we see who win. Of course, we don't have an HBCU spotlight this week, but we got HBCU news, and then we have a weekly rant that's going to be aimed at Dwayne Haskins for getting cut from the Washington something, that football team up there, and your boy Booger McFarland trying too hard to get back on Monday Night Football. He trying too hard. It ain't gonna work. Your name Booger. They already don't respect you. Your name, you over 40, still letting people call you Booger. They don't respect you, man. So let's get to this HBCU spotlight. And I want to figure out if this is attributed to the Deion Sanders effect. Because I'm scrolling through the HBCU Game Day website, and I see that Alabama A&M has landed two quarterbacks who Power 5 schools were going after. So let me read y'all a little bit. So it says Alabama A&M already has one of the best quarterbacks in FCS football, but Akil Glass won't be around forever. So Alabama A&M has been searching for a signal caller for the future. It may have found it in Caden McMullen, a 3-star quarterback from Missouri, or it may have him in C.J. Dixon Jr., an ESPN an ESPN 4-star pro passer. McMullen he's 6'4", a pro style passer from Living Word Christian in O'Fallon, Missouri. He helped 7 offers from Missouri, Idaho, and UNLV. The O'Fallon, Missouri native passed for 6,898 yards, 73 touchdowns, while throwing for 62% of it, completing 62% of his passes in 3 years. The quarterback also ran for over 1,000 yards, had 12 touchdowns in his career, and he was named both all-district and all-conference as a senior. Dixon was an ESPN 4-star recruit, the number 13 pocket passer, and the number 194 overall prospect in the nation for the 2020 class. He's from Loganville, Georgia. He originally committed to Illinois before spending this past season at a prep school in Indian Trail, North Carolina, where he completed 169 of 315 passes for 2,434 yards, 21 touchdowns, 8 picks, and led the team to a 10-3 record. So, so Alabama A&M was able to snag both of these players to add them to their roster with their quarterback. And I remember talking about him too, Akil Glass, because Akil Glass was a baller for Alabama A&M, but they got a chance to add two top highly recruited quarterbacks, especially quarterbacks who were pursued heavily by a number of D1 or FBS schools. So if this was, I want to ask this. Well, I want to say, first of all, congratulations to Alabama A&M for snagging them, because one of my whole things about doing this HBCU spotlight, or the things that I talk about on this channel, is I want to be part of the push to get more of, especially top Black talent, to HBCUs. So shout out to them. But I do want to ask this question. If this was a year ago, or even 2 years ago, does Alabama A&M land these recruits either a year ago or 2 years ago? And if no, if you say no, why not? If you say yes, why? I'll start with you, Sam.
I think they would. Honestly, I think this is more about that individual school more so than about, the totality of it with Deion Sanders at Jackson State and everything like that. Because like you were talking about, that the quarterback they got, he was putting up massive numbers, getting a lot of buzz from NFL scouts and stuff like that. So I mean, quarterbacks, high school quarterbacks, seeing that, they like, well, shoot, if I can go there, get the coaching he getting, do what he doing, and I can follow that same path. Yeah. So I mean, I think this is more about that individual school and what they're doing than about like the whole totality of everything like that. I mean, I think that helps, but I think it's more about that individual situation.
All right. What about you, Doc?
I think it's hard to say. I would like to think it, that would have been they would have gotten those kids either way. But I will say the Deion effect does help. I don't necessarily believe that it's not a factor, but at the same time, it's hard to say. I think even because this HBCU schools pursuing top tier talent is nothing new.
Right.
The top tier talent going to HBCUs is new. You know what I mean? Not necessarily like it's not all right. Every, but HBCUs have been pursuing top tier talent. I mean, as long as they've been around, you know what I mean? It's just, I think the decision of the kids now, based on like a lot of the stuff we've seen here in recent years, just alone with like a lot of the social injustice stuff. Like I think a lot of their decision making has come as a result of such, and so they look at like schools with tradition that pretty much reflect their backgrounds. You know what I mean? So HBCUs would be something that they look forward to. I will say I think the Deion effect does help, but I don't want to say necessarily that's the reason why they snagged those guys. But I mean, either way, I'm happy about it. You know what I mean? Right. Whether it was or wasn't,
Right. What about you, Grant?
I think it's just a reality of where we are in the world. Really, it's 2020. It's not 1980. There's been a great de-emphasis on the running aspect of offenses, and more focus has been put on passing, and that's across the board.
Right.
Where you're talking about FBS or FCS. And what that's really allowing for is more options for players to consider, as opposed to just limiting yourself to the Power Fives, because you're seeing coaches come from these lower levels to go to higher programs and eventually go to the NFL. So I think that is just been, the scope has been widened.
Right.
And you have a lot of 3, 4, 5-star kids going to the big programs, and they're transferring out anyway because they're not winning the starting jobs.
Right.
If I know that I am not really going to be the guy that's coming in as a starter, do I want to give myself the opportunity to go somewhere where I may be likely coming in as a starter and someone else has to come behind me and take my job? And that's not anything wrong with having that perspective. You can think that you're the best and go anywhere that you go to some of these top programs, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be the one that's picked.
Right. Right.
And do you want to stay around and wait for your turn, or are you just going to be, the next big time recruit to go somewhere else and start over?
Right. But that's what's interesting about this particular situation is, all right, you have a quarterback like Akil Glass, who pretty much is going to be the starter based off the numbers that he's been putting up in the past. Then you get 2 top recruits to come in at the same time in the same recruiting class. Somebody gonna transfer out. Like one of those 2 recruits who coming in, somebody is going to transfer out because somebody gonna beat out the other. Neither one of them are. Well, Akil Glass is going to have the edge. Of course, everybody gonna have a chance to compete, but we've seen Akil Glass on the field, so he's going to have that edge. We've seen him put up big numbers on the field. But one of those 2 recruits that coming in, they are going to transfer out just based off of what you were just talking about, Javard. So, all right. So that's our HBCU news and things to keep an eye on. Also, Deion Sanders. Let me go back to one of these, because Deion Sanders has he landed a new recruit from Auburn. Like yesterday or something like that. Yeah, let me see. Let me open this thing up real quick.
I want to say it was a defensive tackle.
Let me see. Let's say the number 21 has always been good to Deion Sanders. The first day of 2021 is holding true to form for the Jackson State head coach. They got another a Power 5 transfer. This time is former Auburn defensive tackle Coyness. That boy named Coyness. See. Hey man. My bad. Hey, I wasn't expecting him. That boy named Coyness Miller Jr. He announced his decision to transfer to Jackson State in the tweet that came out yesterday. So he was the number 8 defensive tackle at Auburn, and Coyness is now going to Jackson State. Hey man, Prime out there doing it.
How does he spell his name, Joe?
Coynis. Hey man, look. Okay, all right.
Coyness, that means like shyness,
right?
Modesty.
See, they gave him. It's the irony in his name,
right?
They made him a defensive tackle. So.
Hey man, the name aside, man. Hey, he putting together a team, man.
Yep. Hey, Jackson. Fam, you got Jackson State first game.
First
going
week.
down.
Yeah, I saw that.
Block Classic, man.
It's going down. Hey, man, SWAC football. That's gonna be the conference to look out for outside of like the regular Power 5 conferences that people be looking at. Look, man, SWAC football gonna be amazing this year. Matter of fact, SWAC sports. North Carolina A&T, they the only one that went to they didn't go to a conference that's predominantly HBCU, right? North Carolina. Okay.
Right.
I think they went to the Sun Belt.
So it was FAMU, BCU, and somebody else from the MEAC went to SWAC. Who was it? Was it Howard? No. Because Howard also left MEAC, but Howard didn't go to the SWAC. I don't know.
I can't remember it off the top of my head.
But yeah, SWAC football gonna be good, man. All right, man. So that is our HBCU news. So we'll go ahead and get into our breakdown or our brackets as we determine who is the greatest college football team of the past 40 years. For those who this may be your first episode, let me give you a quick rundown on how we got to where we at. So we have 16 teams: 2001 Miami, 2019 LSU, 1995 Nebraska, 1999 Florida State, 2004 USC, 1996 Florida, 2018 Clemson, 2013 Florida State, 08 Florida, 2014 Ohio State, 08 Oklahoma, 2012 Alabama, 1987 Miami, 2009 Alabama, 2005 Texas, and 1997 Michigan. We put all our numbers together and we found out who was we had criteria to seed these teams, and we seeded everybody 1 to 16. Number 1 being 2019 LSU, number 16 being 2014 Ohio State. We put everybody together in bracket form to see who we have. So the last couple of weeks, we've had 2019 LSU defeat 2014 Ohio State. We've had 1995 Nebraska defeat 2008 Oklahoma. We've had 2005 Texas fall to 2012 Alabama. We had 2001 Miami with the first sweep of all categories over 2008 Florida. This week, for the Sunshine State, we got 2013 Florida State versus 1996 Florida. And then we have 2018 Clemson versus 1997 Michigan, where it's really going down in the South. So, literally. 2013, right? literally. So, we're from Tallahassee. We know how big this rivalry is. First, let's just talk about how big this rivalry is for those who may not for y'all who may not be from the Sunshine State, or how some people say the Gunshine State. I don't know why they said. Really,
you know,
this is a gun. This a gun bit. This a one of them 1800 guns bit. But how big is this rivalry to you all, Florida State, Florida? Let's just start there. As Florida State fans, how big this rivalry is?
Man, it's big, man. It's you think about it all year. I mean, and then like even a season like this season, it put it in perspective for you, because like we didn't even play each other, but at the same time, it's 2 games, or I should say 3 games that you really worry about. You worry about the Florida State game first, obviously. Then you looking at, what did Florida do? Did they lose? You just hoping they lost. And why? Just because of spite, just because you hate them. It don't even matter. Like, it wasn't gonna affect us one way or the other, but you still want them to lose. Just like at the bowl game, we didn't even have a bowl, but guess what? Them getting their ass beat in they bowl, that was just as good as us being in the bowl.
Hey, they got their ass whooped. Boy,
it's a hatred you adopt as a child. You know what I mean? It's something you grow up with. You know, it's passed down from Seminoles that passed. You know what I mean? We grew up with this hatred for each other. Florida, you mentioned Florida State. You talking about one of the greatest rivalries in collegiate sports history.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, growing up in the '90s, you knew one way or the other it was going to be Florida State, or Miami, and best believe that last game was us in Florida. And, like, we knew if we didn't get past that game, and vice versa, it wasn't no national championship. Wasn't none of that stuff. We had to beat each other to get there. So that hatred is real.
I missed that. I missed that. I missed that, man.
Yeah, it's real.
And if you just look back at it from a historical perspective, University of Florida was the all male school, and Florida State was the all women's school.
Yeah.
And so once the schools became co-ed, you know, the male school didn't want to lose to the girls' school,
right?
And so that in and of itself built this interstate rivalry,
right?
Or intrastate rivalry. And then when you look at the fact that the governor of the state actually mandates that the two programs play every year on Thanksgiving weekend, that adds an extra emphasis on the rivalry, because it could significantly impact each other's ability to get to play for the national championship. And we saw that play out a number of years throughout the 90s, even into the early 2000s when both programs were still playing at an elite level. And it's just something that you're always looking forward to. You're always keeping up with what the other team does. Even when you beat them, you want to score, 40, 50 points on them. You don't want to just beat them. You want to embarrass them.
Right. Now, and it's interesting because I'm not necessarily a fan, particularly of either school. Like I like one more than the other, but I will say that I grew up in a Gator household, so I grew up with more Gator influences, with a bit of a Gator bias, but I don't like one squad over the other like that. But my mom's from Gainesville. Everybody, her whole side of the family from Gainesville. Like, her brothers cooked for the Gators. They worked for the damn team and stuff. So it's like when you go inside the house, they got Gator pictures everywhere. Like, Gator this, they got helmets, they got Gator pillows, Gator comforters, Gator sheets. Like, damn, I got to sleep in the Gator room? Yes, your ass have to sleep in the Gator room, right? So it just, it was interesting for me living in Tallahassee, but living in the Gator household, because still to this day, like, it's like my mom is like Gators. So for me, it was like, which team do I think this year will actually win? So I always looked at it, which team is better this year, like on the field, that I expect to win, and I will always go with whichever squad that I would expect to win. But it could flip flop either year based off of the talent that they put on the field, because it's just both for when us growing up. These are two of the programs when it comes to just talent. Look how many NFL players both institutions have put into the league just in the 90s alone.
Yeah.
Bro, you talk about Derrick Brooks and Javard Grant come out of this. You heard what I thought? Deion Sanders come out of this rivalry. We finna talk about Danny Wolford against Jameis Winston.
Crazy.
Dog. So, all right. So, strengths and weaknesses. 2013, Florida State. 1996, Florida. So, and I know I'm not expecting everybody to have perfect memories and stuff, but I know we got more memories for 2013 Florida State, because that was more recent. But let's start there. 2013 Florida State. Javard, in your opinion, what are the strengths of 2013 Florida State?
I think one of the things that went under radar with that 2013 Florida State is they started the same offensive line all season.
That's big.
They had no injuries along the offensive line, and that is so underappreciated about that team, is that you always had that continuity with this. You got this brand new quarterback who, while he's a phenom, it still is his first action as a starting quarterback early in the season, and you were able to keep that continuity with that offensive line, and that just became paramount throughout the year.
All right, Doc, what you say his strength was for this 2013 Florida State team?
Man, I think it's easy to pick a strength here. Like, it's like really pick your poison, right? Like on either side of the ball. Like, I mean, defensively, we already knew what they were, and offensively, they just score at will, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think overall, as a unit, to like Javard spoke to, like to say a strength would be to have a quarterback come in playing like a wily veteran. Like Jameis came in and played like uncorked. You know what I mean? Like he had been doing it forever. And, out of all the bright spots, it was easy as a Florida State fan. Like that gave me a lot of confidence. And like, man, I had never seen it to that extension, but it was crazy just to see how crazy that we just plugged this guy in to see how outrageously amazing he was as a player, bro. Like it was crazy to watch.
Right. Sam, what you say is strength?
Well, like what Doc said, I mean, it's you could go a whole bunch of different ways with like the talent they had. But I think the main thing about that 2013 team was that they had a mentality. They was locked in every week. Like part of it was what happened in 2012, but it was just a culmination of because they were coming off the program was coming off a era where Florida State wasn't living up to the standards. And 2013, they had this team culminated where they weren't gonna have that. They weren't gonna have that. We were gonna play. They were gonna play to a level, and it didn't matter who you were, they were playing against. They were gonna play up here, and if you couldn't match them, then you just got your ass beat. Yeah. It wasn't no playing. Like, we weren't playing down to this level. It could be Southwest Dakota State, or it could be Auburn. We was gonna play this. How we gonna play? And if you can't match it, then that's just your ass.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, now I get you, because that was really going to be what I was going to say. What stood out to me as a strength is they was better than everybody, and they knew it. Mm-hmm. So we gonna drop these nuts in your face, and you ain't gonna do nothing but get teabagged. Mm-hmm. There it is. So start back with you, Sam. A weakness. Name a weakness that this team had.
The one thing I would say is like they would start slow sometimes. That was the one thing I remember. They would start slow sometimes. So you could early on maybe catch them before they kind of really got going. But once they got going, it was just like an avalanche. But if you could get them before they kind of found that spark, or found that really honed in on what you were trying to do and what they wanted to do, then that was the only thing. Because like we were saying, they didn't have much. They weren't wanting for much as far as talent.
I got a question. When you say start slow, are you mean like in superhuman terms or like regular human terms? Because looking at these scores, if these was regular humans start shit.
No, Joe. Sam is correct.
No, I know.
Yeah,
they started slow up until the Maryland game.
Mm-hmm.
They started slow, and then they beat Maryland 63-0.
Yeah,
and they was off and running after that. There were no more slow starts.
Yeah.
Sam was digging for a needle in a haystack, trying to find a way.
That's
Yeah,
so.
They started slow the first quarter of the season, and after that, it was 35-0.
It was on.
Right.
It was almost like they took it as a challenge, right? You know what I mean? Like let's get a team like an ounce of let's see, you know what I'm saying? See give an ounce of hope and then just come back and just put our foot on their neck. I mean, because like you said, bro, like it really is like searching for a needle in a haystack for a weakness on the team. Like it's almost like you're forcing yourself to make something up because it's unreal.
I'll say one, the punter. That was the only thing. Not the kicker, because Aguayo was making everything.
Aguayo won the Groza Awards.
But the punter was shaky because like sometimes he'll come out there, he'll boot a line drive for 30 yards.
He was
I was about to say he won.
That's part of it too. So I mean,
call him lead foot because he ain't have to kick that much.
He'll punt like one time a game.
Yeah. The weaknesses I was going to go with was punt return. We weren't dynamic in
because
we weren't dynamic in using that part of special teams to garner better field position. Kenny Shaw.
That was Green.
In 13 it was Kenny Shaw. He was good, but he wasn't an elite returner. He didn't give a great field position with the return game, but at the end of the day, it didn't matter because we had James Smith.
Right. Like you said, I think we forcing this one.
Well, I would say this at receiver, not great receivers because that wasn't great. Because if Kelvin Benjamin, your number one, y'all ain't great.
But you gotta
it was great that year.
Yeah, that year it was. Yeah, he wasn't nobody stopping him.
Joe, we had 2,000-yard receivers, a 900-yard receiver, and a 700-yard tight end. Their core. You might look at them individually and say they weren't great, but that receiving core was about as elite as college football is.
But let's remember. The 90% of that was Winston.
Yeah. They still got to produce.
But you still.
Now, I'm not taking away what they did. Now I'm not taking away their stats and what they did because they made the plays. They did make the plays, but I guess I am looking at it like individual talents, especially if I'm thinking about Florida's receiving core that they're going up against. Like, nah.
No, this is spot. Hey, this is stats podcast. Remember? Look at the stats. Look at the numbers. That's what y'all told me. This is stats podcast.
He right,
man. Stop that.
Look at the numbers, cuz.
But like Dr. Javard said, man, it's hard. This team, it was just put together like for you to say what's a weakness.
I get you.
It's a real stretch. You can't even really classify it as a weakness as you can more or less to say, okay, this is the less part of the team. But even still, that's like even if you say the wide receiver core is a weakness, that's still better than 95% of the wide receiver core in the country.
I know. I realize that now. I do. But I'm just saying we talk about what's a weakness and for a team that don't really have many weaknesses. So not saying they trash, but that's the first thing popped in my mind. So all right. So 96 Florida. So we know this is a team we was all watching.
Man.
Look, 96 Florida was live. Danny Wolford, Riddell Anthony, Ike Hilliard, Jaquez Green. Who's Fred? Yeah, Fred Taylor. Running back, Elijah Williams, Terry Jackson,
Travis McGriff.
Right, Travis McGriff. The defense. Let me go to this roster.
Javon, all you gotta say, are you just starting
Javon Curtis? But Javon Curtis had Shay Showers, Who else they had? James Bates. James Bates was that running that linebacker.
When
That Lawrence Wright.
I was gonna say because he won because I remember he won the Thorpe, and I remember thinking it should have been Woodson, or was it Dre Bly?
Yeah. Because he won it over Bly and Woodson. He did win it. He did win it. So Florida had a squad. 96 Florida had a squad. They had Fred Weary, had Fred Weary, Lawrence Wright, Shea Showers, Antoine Lott, Tony George, Javon Curse, Johnny Rutledge, James Bates, all them boys, they had them on their team. So they had a squad. So from what y'all remember, what were the strengths? And I start with you, Javard. What were the strengths of 96 Florida?
Well, just piggyback of where we left on the Florida State discussion, Florida wide receiver core was probably one of the best ever.
Right.
They was so deep, and you couldn't stop any one of them.
Right.
And they just ran through everybody that year until they got to us. But they ran through everybody.
Yeah. That's a glaring strength right there.
I just remember watching. Like I vividly just remember watching Danny Wolf drop back, and I always felt like he was just throwing the ball in the middle of the field, and somebody was running up under it. And it didn't matter who it was. I was like, oh, here we go. And this was one of those receiving cores. This is one of those offenses that it was like every time we played them between 96, just I would say not the mid 90s, just it was always scary because especially with this group right here, like everybody was a weapon, like, and not just like a weapon, but it was like they would kill you. You know what I'm saying? Out of the backfield, all of the receivers, it was touch and go. Every last one of them. If they got the ball, they could get out of there. And it was scary because I never felt like Danny Wolf was like this amazing quarterback, but he had like these like premier top tier athletes around him that just made him look like a superstar. And he was just throwing the ball all over the field. You couldn't do nothing about it. You couldn't do nothing about it. Just sit there and take it.
Yeah. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, like I mean, what everybody's saying is obvious. They could score on anybody. Like they could score fast. They could score from any position on the field. Like it didn't matter. And then like we talking about receiving core, but I mean like when they got ready to run it, I mean they had Fred Taylor. I mean, like it just didn't make sense. Like because what were you gonna do? You were thinking about these four guys at receivers, but then they hand the ball off to this guy, and you like, what are we supposed to do? Right. I mean, can we play with 14 guys on the field? I mean, that's the only thing you're gonna be able to do.
Bruh.
It was just nuts.
That's what I was gonna say. Like Fred Taylor is their starting running back. Like Fred, I know he's in the running for being on the final ballots for Hall of Fame this year, but if you look at his numbers, Fred Taylor had a Hall of Fame career. If you look at his numbers, and remember, we're talking about Danny Wolf at the quarterback, Rita Anthony, Ike Hilliard, Jaquez Green. Then you still have who else? Who was that running back? You still have Terry Jackson and Elijah Williams. I know a lot of people don't remember them, but if you watched Florida around that time, you know those three backs that Florida had were dangerous, and only really Florida State only really had something for them boys, like because these Florida teams around this time was running through everybody, was running through damn near everybody, but also that D line was sick. They was getting to the quarterback. They was wreaking havoc on people. So this team, to me, this is one of my favorite teams. This is one of my favorite teams to grow up and watch. Just how like they dominated everybody. But a live part was hell. Florida State was good at this time too. So that just made me happy on the inside. Yeah. Shit. So going back to Grant, what's a weakness that this team had?
None.
None.
Bro, who was on that back end? Who was on the back end? Who was in the secondary for this team? That's what I'm trying to remember.
They had Lawrence Wright, Fred Weary, Shea Showers, and Antoine Locke.
I remember Shea.
And then they had Tony George as like a nickelback.
Okay. Because that's the only thing like my mind goes through. And it's only because I don't remember when you talk about weakness. But I mean, I think that might be a reach too. That's only just because it's been a while. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I say this: their secondary was good. Only Lawrence Wright went to the league, but their secondary was good. Now, if we're gonna compare, 13 Florida State secondary was better, but this secondary was formidable.
Yeah.
I mean, they obvious only weakness was playing against Florida State in Doak Campbell Stadium. I mean, that's the only thing.
I would say that team's weakness was the hubris of Steve Spurrier, because he knew he was going to come in Tallahassee and blow the doors off, and that's just wasn't what happened. FSU was on 17-0 in that game, and they just could never recover.
Yeah. Well, I would say in that game, the offensive line wasn't the greatest unit ever. So Danny Wolford was on the ground a lot that game, that FSU game. And Florida State's D-line was getting to him.
But I think that goes to what Javard was saying, because like if you watched it, I mean, granted, Florida State defensive line was really good, but I mean, the offensive line for Florida was just put in bad positions by the formation that Spurrier was using. I mean, it was one-on-ones all the way up and down the line. Like they blitzing, like Florida State blitzing, but you still releasing 5 guys with nobody to block. I mean, what you think gonna happen? And then 5 guys, but then they running deep. So
hey man, don't talking down on my pick. I just picked something. I just told my ass to pick. All right, so let's get to it. These two teams on the field, heads up. Even though I know what y'all gonna say.
Oh, bro.
Why? Who win? 96 Florida, 13 Florida State. Head up. Who win?
I just don't see nobody beating 13 Florida State. So I mean, it would be good, and I think the thing that will separate them is like what I was just saying before. I mean, because like you look at that game, that's a game where Florida kind of got inside their own head, whether it be from the top down or not, but they kind of got inside their own head, thinking, well, hey, you know, we don't really. I mean, we could just kind of roll the ball out and just beat this team. Florida State, that was never an issue. Like when they was playing somebody, it didn't matter who it was. They had a standard that they was gonna hit, and like I said, if you didn't hit that standard, that's where you're just gonna get blowed out. So I would see something similar to that here. You know, that I don't see where they would be able to match up. You know, like head for head. Like if you look at match for match, like what we were talking about, Florida State had a defensive line. This Florida State 2013 had a defensive line that it would give this 96 Florida team trouble.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about with the secondary, the Florida State secondary. I mean, what well, if I remember, I want to say all of them played in the NFL.
Right. This one thing, not to cut you off, but yes, Lawrence Wright was good. But Lawrence Wright wasn't Dre Bly or Charles Woodson. So he was good. But I think Lawrence Wright did benefit a lot from that system that they had. But nobody in Florida's secondary, I don't even have to name everybody else. Nobody's better than Jalen Ramsey.
Nope.
Yeah. No. Right. You're right. I think, just to kind of piggyback off what Sam was saying, I honestly think this game is won in the trenches. You know what I mean? I think Florida State wins this game in the trenches because for me personally, as good as Florida State's secondary is, I would love to see that matchup against 96 Florida's receivers. Yeah. I would love to see that. I think I'll sit and watch that all day long. You know what I mean? Just to know how good a secondary that Florida State have versus how good a receivers 96 Florida has. Like, I think that right there is, they're gonna battle it out. Everybody in that secondary gonna battle it out. Nobody gonna have a weak spot. Nobody playing like the weak receiver or up against a weak corner or weak whatever.
Yeah,
I think that game is actually won in the trenches because on the back end, it's gonna be a battle. I would love to see that. I'm gonna be honest with you. I give it to Florida State, but not because of our offense is gonna blow out their defense. I think that defensive line is where Florida State wins that game.
Right. What about you, Grant?
I mean, these are two historic college football teams. Florida really should have been undefeated that year.
They should have.
They should not have lost to Florida State. Of course, I'm going to go with my heart with Florida State this matchup. I think the true challenge with the teams being as even across the board as they are is the overconfidence of Steve Spurrier in this instance versus the ability for Jimbo Fisher to not be prepared for one-off exhibition games. Because if you look at some of their big-time games, like games to start the year, you look at 2014 versus Oklahoma State in Dallas, or if you look at 2016 in Orlando versus Ole Miss, he's kind of not really prepared for these big games, and they get down a lot or they don't come out as strong as they should. And so that would be my only concern. But I would still have to go with Florida State in this game.
Yeah. Now I'm not mad at y'all. Like, for me, I'm looking at the matchup. So quarterback for quarterback, and they looking at stats, right? So Jameis Winston had 4,057 yards, 40 touchdowns. Danny Wolford had 36,025 yards, 39 touchdowns. So Jameis Winston gets the edge. Now, to me, Jameis Winston is a better quarterback than Danny Wolford. I ain't even gonna front and act like I'm trying to say Danny Wolford is better. Jameis Winston is a better quarterback. He was a better quarterback in college, and he was a better quarterback in the pros because Jameis Winston elevated a team who was good enough to being he was the main reason nobody could fuck with Florida State. Mm-hmm. Danny Wolford was a great piece and a great team. And not to take anything away from him because they needed Danny Wolford. Danny Wolford I still think Danny Wolford was a better quarterback than Tim Tebow, but the way they used Tim Tebow was genius. But Jameis Winston better. Offensive line, Florida. I think Florida, like Javard made a great point about Florida State's offensive line, the continuity of that line, because Jameis Winston didn't get hit as much that year as he did the years following. So the Florida State's offensive line get that. So Florida State will have quarterback, offensive line. Now, Florida's receiving core was better than Florida State's receiving core, in my opinion.
I agree with that.
Fred Taylor, it's kind of unfair because Devontae Freeman's career isn't over, but from what we've seen as far as Devontae Freeman in the league and in college, I think Devontae Freeman was a very productive college back, but I have to still have to get a nod to Fred Taylor. D-lines could be by even. Florida State has better DBs, linebackers, maybe edge Florida State. So Just looking at it like that, I do think Florida State is the better overall team. But this will be this to me. I do like what Doc was saying. Like you have to look at it in the trenches because that matters. So what happens in the trenches? Turnovers, penalties, play calling would be huge in this game. This would be like a 35-43 Florida State, 43-40 Florida State. I still think Florida State would win. Not big, but Florida State would win if they played one time. So, like, this is an interesting ass matchup, though, dog.
This is actually one of the better ones. I mean, all of them been good, but this one I really like this one.
Yeah, this is the best. This as far as straight matchup team to team so far. This is the best matchup we've had because they so close.
Mm-hmm.
So all right, so let's look at these numbers. And let me share my screen so we can look at these numbers. My stomach growling like a bitch. So we're determining who move on to the next round by margin of victory, number of All-Americans, total defensive rankings, number of players drafted, and total offensive rankings. So margin of victory, Florida State gets the edge with 39.5. Florida has 31. Number of All-Americans, Florida State has 3 consensus over All-Americans and 8 total All-Americans. Florida has 3 consensus and 4 total All-Americans. So Florida State gets the edge in margin of victory and number of All-Americans. Total defensive rankings, Florida State has the number 1 total defensive ranking, while Florida has the number 14. So Florida State get the edge in total defensive rankings. Number of players drafted, Florida State has 22. Florida has 19. I was surprised I thought Florida would have more, but then when I went back and looked, I was like, oh, I understand. So the total offensive ranking, this is where the only category where Florida wins. Florida State has the number 6 total offensive ranking. So total points per game, 51.6, which was ranked number 2 that year. Total yards per game, 519, which was ranked 6th that year. Passing yards per game was 315.9, which ranked 14th that year. And rushing yards per game was 203, which was ranked 28th that year. And Florida, that points per game, 46.6, which was ranked 1st. Total yards per game, 503.9, which is ranked 2nd that year. Passing yards per game with 333.9, ranked 5th that year. And rushing yards per game was 170. But overall, Florida State gets to move on to the next round because they got the edge in margin of victory, number of All-Americans, total defensive ranking, total players drafted, while Florida got the edge in total offensive ranking. So 13, Florida State gets to move on, and the crowd goes wow.
Hey, Joe, you typed in Florida.
Oh, shit.
Look at him trying to cheat already.
Hey, man, I was just thinking Florida. One of them Floridas.
We know where you live, bro.
Hey, dog. It was the red Florida. Not the orange, but the red. All right, so we expected that. We pretty much, when we saw this matchup, we pretty much expected 2013 Florida State to move on. Like, I ain't gonna lie. I'm expecting 2013 Florida State to meet Miami in the final. That's who I'm expecting in the final. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Now, if that's going to actually happen, I don't know. But that's what I'm expecting to see in the final or meet somewhere. So that's going to be so live.
Right. And then, go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you straight.
I was going to say the crazy thing about looking at the numbers is like the offense was ranked 6th. That's only because Jimbo Fisher wouldn't push it. Like half the time, by the time it was halftime, he was shutting it down.
Right.
Because the second half of the season, they were beating people like 35-0 in the first quarter.
Right.
By the time you got around to the third quarter, Jameis Winston wasn't even in it.
Right.
And we had the slowest offense in the country.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say they was running, everybody else running 95 plays a game. Jimbo Fisher running, 60.
Right.
So I mean,
Steamrolling, bitches.
it's crazy.
Greatly. Hey, man, but that's a dangerous ass team, though. But shout out to 2013 Florida State. I still got Florida. Let's go put FSU. I'm up here fucking. All right. So 2018 Clemson versus 1997 Michigan. Javard, favorite football team of all time, the 97 Michigan. Hey, man, don't try to act like you don't like Michigan, dog.
I do like Michigan, man. So
You got to be the local representative. You are low at call today. All right. So 97 Michigan, 2018 Clemson. This is a very, very, very interesting matchup. And it would be interesting to see this matchup on the field. Of course, Tom Brady wouldn't be starting, but he's on the team, and you got Charles Woodson and everything going on. So, like we did with Florida State, Florida, let's start with strengths and weaknesses. So let's start with 2018 Clemson. So, Doc, let's start with you. From what you remember, 2018 Clemson, what's a strength you would say a standout strength from this 2018 Clemson team?
Sunshine.
Sunshine.
Hey,
Explain.
I mean, the young football prodigy, bro. Like they were. Man, listen. I remember watching Lawrence come out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Come out of high school, and I knew when he got to school, I was like, he gonna be good. He gonna be real good. And when I tell you, looking back at this 18 Clemson versus just even 19 Clemson, I think what Dabo did was he had a great group for like the last, even before Deshaun got there. And I think this team like kind of culminated what he was trying to build like over those past. Yeah, overall, you know what I'm saying? And I think that was like the pinnacle of it.
Yeah, I do get you. And just to hit on that, I think him getting Deshaun Watson showed him what a next level quarterback could do for his team.
Yeah.
And so it's like, all right, well, let's make sure we can continue to get these types of quarterbacks, because it's one thing to have this type of talent in an okay quarterback. But if I got this type of talent, the next level quarterback, shit, we gonna always be in the discussion.
Right, because before that, they could never, like, they were always like on the cusp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they had all the talent, but like they never could get, even when they had Todd Boyd. Yeah, like they had a lot of pieces, but they never could like get over that hump. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that 18 was like, okay, Clemson, they got it.
Yeah. What about you, Javard?
I think what they benefit, similar to what Doc was saying, is that the train is moving now. It's no longer we are elite here, we're elite there, but we're weak right here. No, we're elite everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then he didn't have to come in and be, an all-world Heisman quarterback. He turned out to be that caliber as the year progressed, but they didn't need that from him for them to actually advance to the championship game. And so when you have everything just clicking from all different aspects of your team, you're elite on the offensive and defensive line. You got elite players in the linebackers and secondary, and then you're elite at wideout. You got all-world running backs. You got someone who's going to not only just not be a game manager, but actually take over the game.
Right.
Reason why teams don't have a chance against you.
Hey, is this the year where Clemson had that D lineman that used to like to do those splits? Number 42.
Yeah,
it is. It is.
And they got him on video grabbing somebody booty hole.
Okay, well, I remember that, coach.
Yeah, that was the same year.
Bro, it was like Clemson had some kind of scuffle with one team, and I'm not looking for this, but I'm scrolling through YouTube. Some, you know how these people on YouTube do. Somebody cut that out the frame, just slow mo. His hand just cuffing some booty hole, and I was like, man, what is this?
That was against Ohio State in the previous
Yeah.
year.
So
I'm glad I missed that clip, man.
what's the strength of you, son?
It's ironic that you would say that because that's what I was gonna go to, is that defensive line, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, I want to say it was 3 guys that was like drafted in the top 15 or so or something like that.
They got they had a DN, Austin Bryant, Dexter Lawrence, and Christian Wilkinson.
Yeah. All 3 of them was supposed to go, and they came back that year.
Yeah,
right, and they was just unblockable. I mean, it was nothing you could do. And then I can't even remember who the 4th guy was, but shoot, he was good too. They just had the defensive line just had so many guys that it was crazy. I mean, that set the tone for the rest of the defense, which was also very elite.
Yes. Yeah, that's my strength for this Clemson team is their defense, because I thought they was the best team because their defense was just better than everybody else's defense. Because that year I'm looking at Clemson's defense and Alabama's defense, and like all 3 levels of defense, Clemson was nice. But I do agree that the D line set the tone because you couldn't block them. They had 4 guys who were unblockable, and you had to choose who you're gonna double, but you don't have that many people that you could bring in the block. So Clemson's D line was teeing off on offensive lines that whole year. To me, the offense just had to just score points and not turn it over, because the defense gonna do what it do. But don't tire the defense out. Don't rely solely on the defense. Make some sustainable drives. Trevor Lawrence, we ain't asking you to be Tom Brady, but we are asking you to get the ball to the playmakers. And then, this is the year that they had Hunter Renfrow. So having Hunter Renfrow was Trevor Lawrence's safety blanket.
They had Hunter Renfrow for 15 years.
But they had Travis Etienne since Emery Smith was there, bitch.
They've been there since we were kids, bitch.
No, Travis Etienne is a sophomore this year.
But I thought he was there for 4 years already when he was just a sophomore.
Right.
That's just because when he burst on the scene as a true freshman, you was just like he played like a senior.
Right.
Here's another strength for that team, like ETN in that running game, because that's something that for years they've been able to rely upon when they got in trouble in the past. And let's give it to Trav and let him do his thing, and he gonna work his magic, even though he been here 16 years. So,
and this is one of those teams where the last thing you see kind of shape your perception of the team. We've seen Nick Saban teams get beat in the past.
Yeah.
We had never seen a Nick Saban team be bullied.
Right.
And they just got bullied.
Clemson bullied that Alabama team on their championship game. Just put them around. They treated them like a homecoming opponent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Man, yeah, you're right though. That really did change things and have people look at Clemson different, because 44-16 victory over Alabama.
Crazy.
Nobody,
which was an Alabama team that going into that game, people was talking about as possibly the greatest team ever.
Yeah.
Right, because this is one of them tour teams, right?
That's a year. I want to say that's the year he won the. He didn't win it. He didn't win it.
That was his second year. Yeah, that was the second because he played the following year and got hurt.
So, all right. So
one of the things that people don't remember about how bad that game was, Clemson got the ball in the 4th quarter with 10 minutes left and ran out the clock.
With 10
minutes left in the 4th quarter and ran out the clock. That's how bad the beatdown was.
Yeah. It was one of the games that was over at halftime.
It was,
They,
yeah,
they could have
it definitely
made it
was.
much worse if they elected to.
Yeah. So start with you, Doc. What was a weakness of this 2018 Clemson team?
I don't remember much about like their depth. I don't want to say it's a weakness, but I don't really remember much about the depth of that team. Like I remember everybody who was, you know what I mean, what they did, like their starters or whatever, but I don't remember much about the depth. So, I mean, if I had to say that, I don't remember who was, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know who was backing up who, and if they had people like mixing it up, I don't know who that was.
Okay,
but that's me.
Right.
I don't want to say that's a weakness, but I just don't remember much about. Generally, you got some teams you'd be like, okay, so and so was behind this person, or you know what I'm saying. I just don't remember much about the depth of that team.
I get you. I think because when we thought about depth with that team, it automatically goes to their D line.
Mm-hmm.
And so outside of the D line, it's like, where is even though they are a team who has been able to replace talent with talent, but when we talk about like depth, like 01 Miami depth, it was their D line.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, Grant, what's a weakness to you?
I mean, the biggest weakness for that team was they started Kelly Bryant for 4 weeks. They had no business.
Right.
Right did it. I mean, Dabo Swinney is, he's a player's coach. He knew Kelly Bryant shouldn't be starting.
Right.
But he didn't suck enough to be benched.
Right.
So he gave Kelly Bryant every opportunity to take this job, and he didn't. And so he's like, hey, you played 4 games, got the new red shirt rule, you can stay, or I'm giving you the courtesy of saving this year. The choice is yours, but you're going to be riding the pine because I got
right.
I got 4 sitting on the bench, and you playing like Hawkeye. You making the choice for me. Do I keep 4 on the bench, or do I put Hawkeye on the bench?
Right. Sam, what's a weakness to you?
The only main weakness, if you could get to it, would be the secondary wasn't that strong. If you could get the ball down the field, but the issue with that is you just didn't have the opportunity to do that. Yeah. But like because the safeties, I remember I can't remember the other guy, but I remember they had the one guy, Tanner Muse. He was more like a linebacker playing safety. Mm-hmm. So you could make plays down the field, but it was just hard to get the time to do it.
Now that's a great observation. That's a real great observation because that Clemson secondary it could be suspect. Now they did have people who could make plays, but it could be suspect because it really wasn't the strength of the team as far as offense and defense. That secondary probably was the weakest unit. So that is a real good observation. Now that you say that, and I'm thinking about it because we know the important part their D line played and the important part that their linebackers played. We never really are talking about Clemson's offensive line being trash. Never really talking about that. Nobody never really say anything about Clemson's offensive line. So that means they're doing their job.
Mm-hmm.
And then we know this isn't Clemson's greatest year for receivers, but the receivers made plays. All right. So 97 Michigan. Oh, yeah, hype, man. Let's go up north. Let's go north. All right, start with Sam. 97 Michigan. Got them in the building. You got Brian Greasy on one side, C-Dub on the other side. What's the strength? Mm-hmm. What's the strength for this team?
I mean, it's obvious. I mean, it's the defense, man. I mean, right. they was just nobody could score on them. Like I mean, they was just locking up everybody. And it started. Obviously, it started with Woodson. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he was just ridiculous. And in that year, he took it to a whole nother level. Because he had been great going. He had been great his freshman year. He was really outstanding. Like I said, he was a Thorpe finalist, and I want to say an All-American his sophomore year. And then this year, he just kind of took it to another level. Obviously, winning the Heisman Trophy, but the rest of the guys fed off of that, and but he was a tone setter. I mean, like, because him being there, you knew teams weren't gonna go over to there, and the rest of the guys could kind of lock in, and that just made that defense so tough.
Right. Now that's why I laugh when I ask that question, because I think I know everybody's answer for this, but ask it anyway. Doc, what's the strength of this team?
Well, technically, the punter was, no, bro. I mean, you'll be a fool you say anything else, man. I mean, you talking about a once in a lifetime type of talent. You know what I'm saying? On the back end there, and for them, the luxury to say, all right, we got one side of the field that we literally don't even have to worry about. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so everybody else can lock in, like Sam said, they can lock in on their defensive end and not worry about one side of the field, because ain't nothing happening on C-Dub side. I mean, nothing. And so, I mean, the luxury of, especially for a defensive line, even the second level with linebackers, like to say, all right, we don't really got to worry too much about what's going on behind us, so we can lock in. They put all these people in the box. They playing one man high. You know what I'm saying? So that defense was just, it's not much you can do with them. I mean, they rarely broke assignment. So, and even if they did, they were, you got enough athletic ability to make up for it. So that defense is just, I mean, it's unheralded.
Yeah. All right, Grant, representing the great state of Michigan, Ann Arbor, the Big Blue Bully. Now, what's a strength that hasn't been acknowledged? Because I know and not to be funny, but I know, being that you pay more attention to Michigan than any of us, and I know that year was the big year for Michigan, and everybody was paying attention. So outside of the obvious strength, what would you say was the strength for this team?
This was a typical Big Ten football team. If you go back to the 90s, they were really big on, you run the ball to set up the play action, and you try to limit possessions. And that was the thing that kept them ahead of all the teams that played, is that you weren't going to score very much, but you also weren't going to get many opportunities to score.
Right.
And so while this team did not score a lot of points, they maximized the possessions that they had, because those were so precious throughout the game. And so if you're going to waste your possessions hunting 5 times a game against these guys, you weren't going to have the opportunity to score enough points to beat them.
True. So I would say a strength was their running game. They had 6 running backs off this team to get drafted. I'm going to say that again. They had 6 running backs off this team to get drafted. 6. That's crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
That's crazy. So, and I think what a lot of people sleep on this team because they wasn't flashy. But I want people to remember how great and dominant this team was. They didn't put up a lot of points, but Joe ass wasn't either. And we got somebody who better than everybody on your team. Oh yeah, and y'all can't go out Ty Streets either. Let's not forget about Ty Streets. Y'all can't go out him. And if y'all do get cocky, Remember, we got somebody who better than everybody on y'all team.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
But then the crazy thing about that is on the bench turns out to be the NFL's greatest quarterback of all time. Like Tom Brady was just okay in college.
Mm-hmm.
He's sitting behind because remember when Brian Greasy got drafted to the Broncos, and for a minute the Broncos was solid, but Brian Greasy he got drafted after they had their 2 Super Bowls with John Elway, so he was the succeeding quarterback, and they were okay, but then it just went off a cliff. All right, so 97 Michigan, they end up playing in some kind of alternate universe. 97 Michigan playing 2018 Clemson. One game for the fate of the universe. Who wins?
Ooh, man, it's tough because it's your classic battle of great offense versus a great defense.
Yeah.
I think though I would have to give the edge to Clemson, just because I mean, like Javard was saying, I think if you put it on a game, if they played now, I think Clemson would be able to push the tempo and bring the game up until a modern day type of game. I don't think Michigan would be able to hold them to where it's only like 6 or 7 possessions a game. I think they would push the tempo, and I don't think that as great as that defense was, I don't think they'll be able to hold up when you get in those extra possessions as opposed to what they're used to giving up. So I would give the edge to them. I think it would be a good game though.
Yeah. I'll probably go Clemson too, for the simple fact, I mean, Michigan's luxury was that they didn't have to score a bunch of points. You know what I mean? And like you said, more in a modern day game. I mean, just because we thinking in the now, even with Charles Woodson on the field, I mean, Clemson, the amount of weapons Clemson has at every position on that offense is like he can only do so much. You know what I'm saying? So for Clemson, with the ability to be able to change the tempo of the game, Michigan not being able to keep up with that tempo, and their Michigan's offense not being suited for like a high scoring, fast tempo game. Like I think Clemson edges Michigan. I'd say they edge them by 2 touchdowns. I think they'll beat them by 2 touchdowns. I still think Michigan forces them to play a hard fought game. But I think Clemson, because of they gonna air it out, and they got also I think one thing too we overlook is the speed of the game. Speed of the game versus speed of the players. You go back and look at that 97 Michigan team. You got your Todd Streets, you got your Charles Woodson, but you go back and look at the speed of like a Clemson team now, like all of them the same speed, if not faster. You know what I'm saying? So I think that too, if you take that into account, you talk about a different speed. Like it's different. It's just different. I think the speed of the game changes for them both.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to get into the stats a little bit later, but when you talk about great football teams, a lot of times you hear the word, balanced offense come into the topic. Balance on offense is a like to have versus a need to have. For Michigan in 97, it was a need to have.
Yeah.
They had, we're going to see in the stats soon that they're running, rushing, and passing just almost equal. So they really didn't have the ability to do one without the other. It was really complementary offense that they ran. And what would they do if Clemson's defensive line eliminate their ability to run the ball?
Yeah.
You have to rely on Brian Greasy to lead them to victory, or if he's struggling, maybe you pull him out and put in Tom Brady. But would that balance be able to hold up against that Clemson front? I just don't think that they would be able to. And I would definitely put the
this to me, this would be a game where you would have to ask Charles Woodson to do a lot. Because you would need him on both sides of the ball because Clemson's defense can stop that Michigan offense, I believe. Even though we just talked about 6 running backs going to the league, all 6 of them running backs weren't playing. And Clemson's defense is good enough. I believe if they play, they'll be good enough to at least slow down the running game and force Brian Greasy to do more to beat them. And that's where Clemson would start to get turnovers and things like that. Clemson would have to be turnover free on offense. They would have to be turnover free on offense. It would be interesting to see a senior Charles Woodson or junior Charles Woodson versus a freshman Trevor Lawrence. Because don't throw over there, Trevor. I know.
It's
Don't
tempting.
throw over there. Right. And if Trevor get cocky and throw over there, that could be the difference between them winning and losing. But at the same time, if Charles Woodson get the pick, can Michigan's offense score? Because a team that relies on the running game the way they did, but even though they were balanced, but they rely on that running game because they did a lot of play action. That's what I would think about head to head. So I would give it to Clemson because I think on both sides of the ball, Clemson are a more complete team. Even though Michigan, they will not. You can't just walk over them boys. Can't just walk over. But I think Clemson's defense can get more stops on Michigan's offense. Well, shit. Because Michigan's defense is fucking ridiculous though. But I still see Clemson offense scoring though because you can. I will only remember who the other cornerback was.
right.
So,
but I think that's why when you say their defense, I think Clemson's speed is a mismatch for Michigan's defense.
That tempo too.
Yeah, I think even if you're talking about, like you said, like for Michigan not to be able to have to run the ball or have to score enough points is because their defense was putting the offense in position where, like they were getting takeaways and stuff like that. But like, I don't know if that team versus this team, this Clemson team is the same type of defense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like that defense versus this type of offense is different because that 97 Michigan team didn't see this kind of offense.
Right. No, I'm with you.
It would take, Joe, like you were saying, it would take Charles Woodson would have to do something like on both sides of the ball
and special teams.
Right, and the special teams, he would have to do something. And that would be their main shot of winning is like Charles Woodson got to do something. And and I mean, granted, he could do it because I mean, you seen games where he pretty much almost single-handedly was like, hey, like the Ohio State game, he pretty much said, you know what, we ain't having this today. And so that would be the thing that they would be looking for.
Yeah. But I would be worried how heavily they would rely on that, especially if their running game gets slowed down.
I think it's a long shot, but he would literally have to be Superman, kind of like what they was trying to do with Jabril Peppers. Whenever, you know what I'm saying? Like they just trying to put him everywhere to make something happen.
Yeah.
I like Jabril Peppers, but I used to get so annoyed when they tried to compare him to Charles Woodson. Because it was not even close.
They had Peppers, returning kicks, playing running back, playing wide receiver, and he was a good player. He had exceptional talent, but he wasn't dynamic in the way that they that he was portrayed.
Right. Because where is he now?
I think he playing in New York.
But think about, listen to how you just said that. I think no. And see, you can't be mentioned like that. And then 5-6 years later, we trying to think about where you at. We didn't have to think about where Charles Woodson was. We knew where he was because he was balling.
Yeah, defensive player of the year.
Right. Rookie of the year, all that stuff. Like,
He
man,
was
that
one of the greatest football careers ever, going from to the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the greatest careers ever.
Man, let's look at these numbers though. Let's look at these numbers for that Clemson and that Michigan.
Clemson.
Clemson Thomas, man.
Right. So, margin of victory, Clemson has 31.2, Michigan 16.8. So that gives Clemson the edge in margin of victory. Number of All-Americans, Clemson has 3 consensus and 4 total. Michigan has 1 consensus and 5 total. So Michigan gets the edge in number of All-Americans. Total defensive rankings, we have a tie. That's what's interesting about this matchup too. They both come in with number 1 defenses.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a tie for total defensive rankings. Number of players drafted, Clemson has 13. 1997 Michigan has 19. Total
only thing about that is Clemson got some guys on that team that's not draftable yet.
So yeah, that is the caveat, is everybody who was on that 18 Clemson team have not graduated. So that is a caveat to look at. Total offensive ranking, Clemson they're number 3, Michigan is number 44. So for Clemson, their points per game, 44.3, give them the number 4 ranking in that. Total yards per game, 528, give them number 3 ranking in that. Passing yards per game, 278.7, a number 24 ranking. Rushing yards per game, 249.3, a number 10 ranking. For Michigan, number 44 ranked total offense, 27.4 points per game, 44th rank. Total yards per game, 388.5, number 44th rank. Passing yards per game, 201.2, 14th rank. And that surprised the hell out of me. That's how you know they really weren't throwing that ball like that. Then rushing yards per game, 187.3, number 28 rank. All right, so we got a dilemma here because we got Clemson has the edge in margin of victory. Michigan has the edge in number of All-Americans. We have a tie at total defensive rankings. We have Michigan got the edge in number of players drafted as of right now, and Clemson got the edge in total offensive ranking. So we got a dilemma. So I guess it comes back to us to break this tie.
So based on who's at Clemson now, we'll just say who played in the game last night. How many of them get drafted?
I think at least 6 or 7.
Me too.
Honestly.
I and when we got there, I said I know this is gonna be the tiebreaker based on that caveat, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Look at the number of people they had play last night.
They'll have more than 6 drafted.
They'll have, yes, absolutely. Me personally, I think that breaks the tie.
Yeah, I agree. Because, like, you look at, Trevor getting drafted, ATN getting drafted. And I want to say, I think it was a couple of receivers that played in the 18 games.
Yeah, Justin Ross didn't even play.
Justin Ross.
Right.
Probably some of the defenders that we're not thinking about.
Right.
I mean, that kind, to me, it seems like that's the only thing that was holding Clemson back from winning this.
That team was that good and that young.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. But even if we didn't use that, even if we went off of what we believe, who would win the head-to-head, we've already stated that all of us believe
we all pick Clemson
will win. So with that, Clemson gets the edge, and they get to move on to the next round because they deserve it. So you know, so that's the recap. At 2013 Florida State versus 1996 Florida. And actually, this round has been the best round as far as the how evenly matched the teams was. And this is the round where this episode made us really think about this, even though we kind of knew, but it was closer in competition, even though you still have the distance in the years. So to show you like but the 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99 teams, like they were good, like them schools. But also like these late 2000 team or 2010 teams were good as well. So 2013 Florida State edged out 1996 Florida, and 2018 Clemson edged out 1997 Michigan. So they get to move on. So next week will be the end of our first round. We'll have 2009 Alabama versus 1999 Florida State, and 2004 USC versus 1987 Miami Hurricanes, and that is going to be interesting. But this was great though. Like this is great because it made us think. Like man, like I know, goddamn 13 Florida State better, but shit, 96 Florida like right there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, cool. All right, man, let's get to this weekly rant so we can close this thing out. Dwayne Haskins, his ass then got cut by the Washington somethings. So when y'all first start with you, Grant, when you first heard Dwayne Haskins was cut, what was your initial thought?
I didn't know why he was cut, but my initial thoughts were he had to just not been taking this seriously, taking his profession seriously. And then I saw his responses about how I'm going to learn from my mistakes and be a better player, be a better teammate, all that stuff. And from my perspective, I know I'm a little bit older than him, but when people make these apologetic statements, one of the things that I always think to myself is, I don't need to be convicted of drunk driving to not drive drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have some awareness that you should be doing your job to avoid losing your job. And I don't think you have to be 12 years old to not know that you shouldn't be able to do that. You're 20 years old.
Right.
You know if you're not doing your job in college, the person behind you can take your job.
Right.
So I don't know why you would go into the NFL and not have that same perspective. But hopefully this is a learning experience for him, and hopefully someone will give him a chance. But if another team doesn't want to roll the dice on him, it's his own fault.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. What was your initial thought, Doc, when you heard this?
Well, it was for me. It was kind of odd. First with the incident at the club, of him not being masked up, social distancing, all that XYZ, and then with Alex Smith being out, and then they gave him pretty much gave him another opportunity to say, well, for me it was like, all right, well, if you play good, we'll keep you around. But of course that didn't happen, so it's like, well, I mean, we don't really have an incentive to keep him now, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So for them it was like, show and prove. Yeah, you screwed up, but show and prove. So I feel like if his play was different, he still would have been on the team. You know what I mean? I feel like that, even with the statement that came out after the fact, hey, we appreciate your time, yada yada yada. For them, it was just like, we don't see any value to keeping him around, even now. You know what I'm saying? Even with, I don't even know who the quarterback is after him. So,
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, that I don't think they saw any more value. And even for him, I think, like Jay said, this is a learning this is a real learning experience for him, because I think a lot of times too, them young guys get out there and they don't really understand the opportunity they get, and they'll put themselves into like real compromising positions that they can't even come back from.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think this is just a prime example for him. I mean, hopefully he get it together. I see he just signed with new management this morning or yesterday or something like that. I don't know how far that's gonna go or what that's gonna do for him. You know what I'm saying? Somebody will give him a look. I mean, I don't know how serious they're gonna be with it, but somebody will give him a look. I hope whatever he going forward work out for him, but hopefully he learned from it.
What about you, Sam? What was your initial thought hearing this?
I thought that it had to be something more than just the play on the field. Because the play on the field, he wasn't good, but it wasn't like, oh my God, this guy don't belong in the league. Yeah. It wasn't like he was like, oh my God, totally like, oh, I can't believe this guy actually got the play or whatnot. He looked like a low tier second year quarterback. So he made mistakes that you would expect on the field. But then when I hear that they released him, I thought, well, then okay, this got to do with the strip club incident, and it's probably some more stuff off the field. And then, like what Javard said, that statement, it kind of insinuated that, like, it kind of reinforced what I was thinking. Like, okay, maybe he wasn't being a professional in some of the things that he was doing.
Yeah.
Because most of the times teams aren't gonna cut, a top draft pick. I mean, they won't renew their contract, but most of the times they won't cut them because they don't want to take the cap hit. But for them to cut them, I was like, it had to be something more than just, we're gonna move on from him.
I honestly think the expectations for him were too high, because he shouldn't have been drafted as high as he was. I understand why he was, but to me, I think he was drafted too high, so the expectations on him were a lot. As a Cowboy fan, I'm like, hey, I hope y'all stay fucked up over there. Like, don't ever get y'all shit together. As a Cowboy fan, but as a black dude, as a person in the United States looking at what's going on in the world of sports, and especially looking at a black quarterback, I'm like, I'm kind of cringing on the inside, because when one black quarterback fails, it kind of affects all black quarterbacks, and then even future black quarterbacks behind him, because we already needed Cam Newton to succeed this year. We needed that because Patrick Mahomes has been able to elevate himself past that. Deshaun Watson, because of play as well, not because of skin color, but because of play, they've been able to kind of take themselves out of that area where if Cam Newton don't succeed, or if these other black quarterbacks don't succeed, it affects them. So they're the few black quarterbacks because of play, but they still got the right skin tone to be knocked down at any point now. So I do want people to understand that. But Dwayne Haskins not succeeding in Washington is a blow to not just his future, but other black quarterbacks. Because one thing we're going to talk about is, listen to what Booger McFarland already said. Booger, you got a black ex NFL player who in the media now, who then generalized all black NFL players coming in. And that's not fair, but it's the way things is, and things need to change. And people keep talking about we need change, but they keep falling back into that when it's convenient. But it's just, honestly, I want to take Dwayne Haskins and headbutt his ass and poke him in his eyes or something, and try to get him, like, you really squandered an opportunity. Like, first of all, you got. Bro, you hit a lick getting drafted like that. You hit a lick. You shouldn't have been drafted that damn high. But you also didn't take advantage of your opportunity at Washington. It may not be the greatest opportunity, but you didn't take advantage of it. Haskins says in the tweet, he says, "I take full responsibility for not meeting the standards of an NFL QB and will become a better man and better player because of this experience." And this is after Ron Rivera told him, he says, "I told him that I believe it benefits both parties that we go our separate ways. We want to thank Dwayne for his contributions these last 2 seasons and wish him well moving forward." Of course, they're being nice in the media, but he wasn't performing on the field. Then he had the crazy stuff going on off the field. Like, I found out about the strip club stuff late. Like, when I was thinking about Dwayne Haskins, I was looking at his poor performance on the field. I found out about off the field stuff late. I mean, what leg you got to stand on?
Right.
It's just unfortunate that this situation has happened.
Yeah, and kind of going back to.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and kind of going back to what Sam was looking to, this had to be. Well, when you look at it from the corporate perspective, to cut him during the season means that it most likely had to do with stuff off the field. And when you're the quarterback, you are the face of the franchise, and that's who people see. And so, if the quarterback has to be the leader, on and off the field. The quarterback should not be the person seen not following the COVID-19 protocols.
Mm-hmm.
The quarterback should not be the person who's getting
COVID-19
and spreading to other teammates, because it sets a precedent for other players to not fall in line when someone who is not even performing to the standards of the team, not even performing to help the team get better, is one of the people who are not doing what the team expects all of its players to do, what the league expects all of its players to do. And you got a chance to actually get this team into the playoffs. As bad as your season was, you got a chance to get this team into the playoffs. And for them to cut you, knowing that what their quarterback situation is, that means that you have lost the trust of the team.
Yeah.
And they can't put you in that high profile position moving forward.
Right.
I think even with that, bro, like I'm with y'all, but I still think I think if his performance was different on Sunday or whenever they played, I think he was still on the team.
I agree.
Even after the incident,
no doubt.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
If he played better, I think he's still on the team.
You are right. Not to cut you off, but you are right, because look at like I said, I called out Lou Williams' name, but look at him. But remember, all the Broncos quarterbacks got COVID for one person not following COVID rules, and his on the field stuff or his locker room stuff wasn't horrible. So I agree. If Dwayne Haskins had better performance, he would still be on the team.
Yeah, I mean that's just the nature. That's just the nature of NFL, man. I mean, like I mean, a lot of people don't like it, but if you could play, they'll overlook other things. And so if you prove that you could play, then they would have overlooked that. But they just looked at weighing it and was like, I mean, his play is down here, and then he bringing this negative stuff off the field, so it's just not worth it.
Right. I mean, it's unfortunate. Like I said, it's an unfortunate situation for Dwayne Haskins, because you had somebody who, like I say, who wasn't he was the second to third string of Ohio State, wasn't he?
Third one.
Yeah, I think he was third behind Barrett and Cardell and all them.
He played like 2.5 games in college.
Mm-hmm.
Got drafted. So you pull the lick, you get drafted. All you have to do is just do right. Like, all you have to do is do right.
Well, he played more because he had the one season he was a starter.
Okay.
Yeah, he had the one season where he was a starter.
But still,
he played well.
But look, those helping Ohio State win that championship pretty much sealed him and put him on the map in the red. All he had to do was not mess it up. Just all he had to do is not mess it up. So and at Ohio State, he didn't mess it up. But then I always thought he got drafted too high. But then again, as a Cowboy fan, I'm always glad when Washington make bad draft picks because we make bad draft picks all the time. So I'm glad to see other teams make bad draft picks because we can't be the only team making bad draft picks. So
I don't know, bro. Like going with the draft, man. I thought the Giants had messed up, honestly, because they drafted Daniel Jones, and I remember thinking, I was like, why would you take Jones with Haskins sitting there? I mean, because he threw 50 touchdowns or whatnot. I mean, it's all hindsight now, but I was one of the people who's like, man, the Giants. I thought the Giants blew
it. Right.
But
so
I guess that's why I'm sitting here and they sitting there.
Nah, some of them ain't supposed to be there.
Yeah. we get
hey, we all better than Booger right now, man.
That's true.
Speaking of that, let me shut my screen.
Oh man.
Let me shut my screen, make sure this audio plays so we can see what Booger McFarland was talking about with Dwayne Haskins.
Now on the street.
You know, unfortunately, I've seen this too many times. Played in the NFL almost a decade.
Mm-hmm.
You played a long time. We've been around it for a long time. And oftentimes young players, especially, and I'm going to go here, especially young African-American players, because they make up 70% of this league. They come into this league and they ask themselves the wrong thing. They come into the league saying not, how can I be a better player? They don't say, how can I be a better teammate? They don't say, how can I be a better person? How can I get my organization over the hump? Here's what they come in saying. They come in saying, how can I build my brand better? How can I build my social media following better? How can I work out on Instagram and show everybody that I'm ready to go, but when I get to the game, I don't perform? Dwayne Haskins, unfortunately, is not the first case that I've seen like this.
Yes.
And it won't be the last. And it bothers me because a lot of it is the young African-American player. They come in and they don't take this as a business. It is still a game to them.
They look at it as football.
This ain't football, right, man. This is a billion-dollar business.
Yes.
It's billions of dollars. They pay us a lot of money to talk about the game. So imagine what they pay these guys to play the game.
Yes. Yeah.
They play a child's game and get paid a king's ransom. And it bothers me because I saw a quarterback do it. I saw Jamarcus Russell do it. The number one pick in the draft, they gave him $40 million and he threw it down the damn drain because he didn't take it seriously. And it bothers me because there are a lot of jobs like this around. I'm going to tell you, I've been retired a while. It's not a lot of jobs like that around where they will pay you millions of dollars for virtually 6 months of performance. So my message to Dwayne Haskins, not just him, but the rest of the young players in the NFL, man, this is a game, but take it as a business. There are billions with a B of dollars at stake. And until you start approaching this game that way, until you start coming to work saying, you know what can I do to get better today? What can I do to make sure my teammates are better today? How can I put my organization first instead of my damn Instagram? Take it as a serious business, but too many times it's a game. We want a TikTok. We want to do all these different things. Man, do you understand how much money is at stake?
The brand is about being professional.
Now, for me, I don't have a problem with you getting on young players. I don't have a problem with you calling out a lot of the laziness or some of the uncalled for stuff that young NFL players do. In context, we know 75% of the league is black. So most of the players that get drafted are going to be black. And therefore, you may have a high number of players who just don't pan out to be black. But he called out Jamarcus Russell. I could call out Ryan Leaf. I mean, off top. So my issue is you targeting specifically black players. That's my issue with this. Don't act like it's only black players that come into the league and throw away their opportunities. I was looking at a list of like the 25 draft busts over the last 15, 20 years. And because it's more black players on that list, but almost half that list was white boys. Mm-hmm. So come on, Booger.
The thing that stood out to me was he was kind of saying two different things. It's like, okay, because he said treat it like a business, but then you want to be mad at the guys for trying to capitalize on their brand.
Right.
That's
Bingo.
treating it like a business.
Bingo.
That's treating it like a business. They understand that, okay, most of the guys, they're gonna be gone in 3 years. So I need to seize this moment now to grow my platform. They treat it like a business. So then don't turn around and say, oh, you need to treat it like a business. That's what they're doing.
Booger, this whole rant was it's easy to attack the black players because that's what he sees, right?
Yeah.
The majority of like we said, the majority of the league looks like us. And like Sam said, his whole rant is a big contradiction. He's contradicting everything that he wouldn't do. I wouldn't be on TikTok. I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be building my brand. You're also not being paid like these guys are to do certain things. Like you said, Joe, yes, there are a number of players who are lazy, who don't do this, who don't do this, who don't do that. But guess what? Not all of them are black.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it was easy for him, and you can tell in his context, he was like, well, I'm going to go there. Do you go there? Did you go there with Johnny? Did you go there with Ryan? Did you go there with all of the other players? If not, I don't want to hear it. Booger ain't been good on nothing I ever seen Booger on. And this right here, for him, is all buzzworthy. Like for me, like it's just something for him to pick at. It was something for him to pick at. It's a load of crock for me. I don't like Booger face. So
I don't like his name.
No, nothing he just said. Nothing Booger says to me. I don't take. Yeah, I take it with a grain of salt, but man, get that crap out of here, man. Ain't nobody listening to that, man. If you can't play both sides, don't play one.
Right.
The thing that stood out for me is that you said that he said that 7% of the league is African American, and he made it, or he projected it as if 70% of the African Americans are behaving the way that he described Dwayne Haskins behaving. And if that was the case, it shouldn't have taken you going back 15 years to find your example of the person behaving the way which you inappropriate for African Americans to be behaving with the job and the money and the opportunity that they have. I mean, he didn't say anything about, all of the branding that Tom Brady has done throughout his career to grow his brand, his wealth, his identity outside of the game of football. He didn't do that for him. He didn't do that for Peyton Manning. He didn't do that for Drew Brees. He didn't do that for all these for Aaron Rodgers. They all did the same thing. They just didn't get in trouble with the law, or with the league. That's really the only difference.
Right.
That they have become elite with their craft, and they've used their success to benefit them in ways on and off the field, and they did it in a more tasteful way to Booger McFarland.
Right. Mm-hmm. But it's like, but for him,
it's all about how you package your conversation.
Yeah.
Because I'll give you an example. When we were kids, we were all told to never, ever get in a car with a stranger. Just run away. If a stranger tries to get you in the car, just run away. But if you make the car pretty, you give it some good advertisement, you make it affordable, then you come up with Uber. And nobody has a problem getting an Uber with a stranger. Nobody does. And it's all about the parent. If the branding that he saw from these black athletes was as crisp and as clean as the Aaron Rodgers, the Tom Brady's, the Drew Breeses, if it was as clean as crisp as that, he wouldn't have this problem.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't.
So
It's just that what he's the two people that he talked about made black people look bad in front of white people. So he's going to rail against all the young players in the league.
Right. But it's like the most recent example and the greatest example of what he's talking about is what Sam said, Johnny Manziel.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Manziel was trying to use social media to leverage his platform. Johnny Manziel was doing all these things wrong. And so it's just like, come on, Booger, you can't just, if you mad at Dwayne Haskins, be mad at Dwayne Haskins. Call Dwayne Haskins out for his individual lack of performance. But don't say, I'm sick and tired of these African-American players. Booger, your ass ain't going back on Monday Night Football. You was trash. They keep demoting you because you're not good at what you're doing. And also remember, I keep trying to tell y'all black people who like to do things like that, go above and beyond to prove that all black people, that you're some different type of black person, the other ones are wrong. White people don't really like y'all because they see, well, if your own people can't trust you, how can we trust you? They don't like you. They don't like you. Stop going all out your way to make white people feel good and say that they don't like you. Go ahead.
And the white people, they're smart. There's like it's too much heat going on with race relations. So I ain't gonna get on TV and say this.
Right.
You black person over here, you want to go over here?
Right.
Okay.
Right. And I'll just agree with you.
I'll stand behind you and nod.
Hey, but so let's. If we throwing shots, we got to get Moss ass too, because Moss was his amen corner over there. That's right, Bug. That's right, Bug.
You know what? I think, and a lot of times too, I think they get caught up in the moment. I think even with Moss, and I'm not taking up for him, I think in the moment, sometimes you'll sit and listen to somebody be like, oh yeah. And then in hindsight, be like, what was I agreeing to?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, no. And I'm not saying that's what happened with Moss, but I think in that moment,
he got caught up. I agree.
You start to hear certain things, and then the context and the content of it all sounds. It's all sound right and agreeable. He's like, yep, right. But then I think if you go back and look at it, I think if Moss go back and look at it, if we keeping things in context, Booger talking about you, Randy.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. He talking about you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think
I was thinking the same.
Yeah, he talking about you, Randy Moss. He talking about you. Everything you did and what he's chastising all these young African American players for doing is you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think Randy, honestly, I think he was in agreement, but I don't even think he understood what he was in agreement with.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the crazy thing about that.
I think the thing.
Go ahead. I think
the thing that was so disappointing for me is. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you good.
Okay, I think the thing that was so disappointing for me is that y'all got a production meeting. Y'all knew this question was coming up, and you had time to think about what you was going to say, and you still went in there and said that BS.
Right.
And then
come on, man.
And I just want to let you know, America, these young black African American players, like Booger, take off the white gloves and the top hat. Stop acting like the WB fraud. That's not gonna help you advance in your career. Like
it was nuts because it would have been. I mean, I wouldn't have agreed with him still, but it would have been fine if he had just said, "This is what these young players do," because the things he was talking about is all stuff all players do now. They all grow their brand on social media. They all got verified Twitters. They all all started YouTube channels. All the players, because they realize this is a chance for me to for lack of a term, to strike while the iron's hot. So they're gonna do it. But why single out black players when it's all the players that do this?
Right.
When you look at the draft, you see all the players. They go up there, the black and the white players. They shining for their, hey, this is the brand I'm wearing. You know, I'm gonna start. They all doing that. So,
Later,
it's crazy.
Later in the conversation, he went back and said, "I'm not talking about all African Americans, bitch. That's what you've been saying the whole time. You own them, bro. Like, stop it." So
they understand what him and his generation of players didn't, right? Like, when I'm done with the game, and nothing against you being an analyst, I don't want to have to be up here every day. I want to enjoy the fruits of my labor. So guess what? I'll brand myself so I have another stream of income coming in. I'll brand this. I'll brand that. I'll put myself on TikTok. I'll put myself out there. So when I'm done with the game, I ain't up here with these disfigured fingers like you guys.
like y'all, man.
You know what I'm saying? Like, understanding the cutthroat business of the NFL. If I get hurt, tear my ACL in 4-5 different ways every year, none of my money is guaranteed. Like, y'all didn't have that. Y'all was getting a couple $100,000. That money is going to the doctors because you're constantly in there. Them guys understand, like, man, we gotta have this wealth for us to take care of ourselves moving forward. So yeah, I'm a brand myself. Are you crazy?
But it's like Dwayne Haskins' situation is Dwayne Haskins' situation.
Right.
Dwayne Haskins is not representative of all young players, whether black, white, or whatever they come from. Because I would say, if he said that about all white players, we would still have to get on his ass because it ain't true. It's just not true. There you have certain individuals who we pretty much know gonna come in and have some type of issues. They still get drafted and they give them the leash to hang themselves. But you can't sit here and say the majority of African American players, Booker McFarland, you full of shit, and we calling you out for it. It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
And the majority of players that get released, it's almost all the time it's performance based.
Right.
I mean, stop it, man.
And
stop
you want to pick out this one time. You want to pick out this one time to complain about a player's behavior on the outside of the field, and then you want to just indict all African American players in the league.
Right. And Randy, stop that shit, Randy. We saw you. Amen. And we saw you, bro. Come on, bro. Come on, Randy. You know better.
Yeah.
You know better.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Hey, man, it's been 2 hours, but I appreciate y'all, boys. Hey, y'all remember we recorded our live podcast for the Freedom Train Network, so make sure y'all go check that out. It went down, so make sure y'all go check it out on our YouTube channel and our Freedom Train Network Facebook page. He's Javard Grant. He's Doc Love. He's Sam Dixie. I appreciate y'all boys coming through. It's Fix Sports Podcast. Remember, y'all can support me on Patreon at patreon.com/The Fix. You see, that's my name. Hitting y'all in your head every Monday. So next week, we're going to end round 1. And just to recap, we're going to have 09 Bama versus 99 Florida State. 04 USC versus 87 Miami going to be next week. So y'all strap it up. Hey, man, shout out to all our Florida State, Florida fans. Shout out to the Clemson and Michigan fans, I guess. But since we here in Florida, we from this ride street. That's why we shot down. So with that being said, man, 2 fingers in the air like a player. We catch y'all on the other side. Peace out.